morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Football, presented by BKCW. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined by Jerry Hamilton and Bobby Burton. Tell us where you're checking in from. Tell us what you're drinking. Get your questions in. We got a whole lot to talk about, an absolute loaded show today. We even have Dallas Skyline head coach Jacody Coleman joining us here in about 20-25 minutes or so. So we'll talk to him about all kinds of stuff. But first, guys, we got to start with the hot topic, the NFL draft. Longhorns with 2 first-round picks yesterday. What are y'all's initial thoughts?
First time since 2007, I believe Texas had 2 first-round picks. So 17 years. It's been a while. That was also when Texas was really, really good coming off a national championship. Obviously, things kind of line up. This Texas coming off a college football playoff berth. So things kind of lined up there. It's great for – look, I mean, congrats to Byron Murphy going to the Seahawks, all that hard work he put in. He says he was born swole, which may be true, but he's maximized the swollenness and just had ascended, accelerated, whatever term you want to use, past anybody's expectations. So congrats to him. I think Xavier Worthy was the big winner going to Kansas City, though. I mean, he's playing with a top 3 quarterback of all time. I mean, it's hard. It doesn't get much better than that as a wide receiver to get drafted by Kansas City right now. He is in the catbird seat, guys.
I love it. I wrote a little something on Texas football today, Jerry, about Xavier Worthy this morning. I go back to 2022. So he had a great 2021 as a freshman, right? I go back to 2022. He had a good start to the year, and then all of a sudden he started getting the drops later in the year. And I had known, and we had talked about it off air, that he actually had a broken hand during that entire time. And people were wondering, why is he dropping these balls? And I finally said it after the bowl game that he had a broken hand, and people came after me like, oh, that's just an excuse, yada, yada, yada. Well, now it's out that he had a broken hand, but this is where people mistake Xavier Worthy for who he is. A lot of people saw Xavier Worthy his freshman year and sophomore year, maybe thought, oh, prima donna, labeled him a prima donna a little bit, right? And he may have a little bit of that in him because he's really good. But the way he got the broken hand was after a football game the Longhorns lost, in which he played well, by the way. He punched a locker.
Yeah.
Because he was pissed about the loss, not pissed about him and his performance or whatever. He was pissed because they lost. Now, it ended up being an immature act, don't get me wrong, to do that. But that broken hand, hurt him the rest of the year, et cetera. I do think he showed some maturity this year and stepped up and was a leader. The one thing I would say about not only him, but Byron Murphy, and Jerry, I know you heard the same thing as me. When those 2 guys stepped on the practice field, every time it was about maximizing what God gave them. They were 2 of the best practice players Texas had over the last decade. Yeah. They went hard every single practice, left everything on. And Xavier Worthy's 165 pounds.
Yeah.
Byron Murphy is that big guy that, you would think doesn't have all that energy because he's so big, right? Those 2 guys got just rewards last night, in my opinion. They got just rewards and were rewarded for a lot of hard work, a lot of learning and growing up through the years. But I wish them nothing but the best, both of them.
So let me ask you all this, because there's lots of comments, and obviously the NFL draft continues today, but were you surprised that A.D. Mitchell not taken? I mean, obviously Buffalo kind of traded, they did trade down twice. And, a lot of people have him slotted to go there. So we could see him be the first pick off the board tonight. Although Buffalo did say, I was just reading right before the show started, they may trade down again. But were you surprised to see some of these other receivers go in front of Mitchell?
I wasn't. He's got an injury history, first of all. So there's that. There's some off-field stuff and on-field stuff that people are talking about. Openly now, that he wasn't the easiest guy to work with at times at Georgia or Texas. Apparently he's got diabetes. But ultimately you look at what he did on the field in the biggest stages, and he always came through seemingly. And so I think that at some level, people may not have wanted to spend a first-round pick on him. But that doesn't get you blocked out of the NFL whenever you can play like A.D. Mitchell. I bet he goes really, really early today. The draft, I think, gets started at 6 o'clock Central. Is that right tonight? Bills do have the first pick. I can see him going anywhere in the next 5 picks. He's just too he's too athletic, too proven on the actual football field not to get a shot here early on. And when you run 4.35 at his size, give me a break. Yeah, I mean, give me a break.
Yeah. Before we move on, and we'll talk a little more draft here in just a second. But Bobby, first, can you tell folks out there about BKCW?
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate BKCW very much. Did your business have a frustrating insurance or employee benefits renewal? That's very common for businesses. Most likely you didn't hear from your agent most of the year, and then right before it was time to renew, they delivered the bad news of a rate increase. Operating out of their headquarters in Austin, Texas, and owned by a UT grad, BKCW uses a 5-step process to identify your business's weak spots, design a plan, execute it, and most importantly, monitor your situation throughout the year so that you can effectively lower your insurance costs and manage your company's risks. Go to bkcw.com or send an email to info@bkcw.com to get started with a free risk assessment or claims audit and escape the insurance trap. It's a really easy thing to do. Again, go to bkcw.com or send an email, info@bkcw.com.
I want to thank them for sponsoring each and every Friday. And real quick, Jerry, I want to ask you for the Cowboys fans out there, because we have people talking about that pick as well. But what do you think about Tyler Guyton?
It's interesting. He doesn't have a lot of experience, right? I was watching some of the ABC coverage when that pick came in, and Nick Saban thought he had some of the highest upside in the draft. Also, one of the least experienced players in the draft. So I think it's a solid pick for Dallas at a need position. How soon that he becomes the guy for Dallas is the question. But look, Gary Patterson told somebody I know when he signed him out of high school that he could be a first-round pick one day, and he ended up being correct. He thought his upside was so high. He was so raw as a football player, but he had so much athletic ability, such a great frame, and he thought he would end up being physical enough to get there, and he was right. I mean, the question is, how soon is he going to be that guy for Dallas? I don't have that answer. I don't think it's a bad pick at all. I think the guy's got a lot of upside at offensive tackle. And look, here's the other thing. Clay Copeland, I'll give him credit. They got Guyton and they got the 73rd pick of the draft. So that's a quality third-round pick, early third-round pick too out of that draft. Or out of that trade. So I know Dallas is going to take heat for anything they do by the fans that don't like Dallas, as I love them or hate them. But I don't think it was a bad pick, and I don't think the trade was bad either.
Hey, I got to say this. The only thing that made me laugh about that pick, and I'm not a Dallas hater by any stretch. They showed the highlights of him on ESPN, and the second play they showed literally was a hold.
Yeah.
It was an outside run, and he literally reached around and held the guy. I'm like, that's just typical for an OU lineman. Show the hold as a highlight.
Was Kevin Marr cheering him on?
Yeah, Kevin Marr may have been cheering him on. With 2 referees in the backfield, by the way, and can't call holding. Unbelievable.
We have a whole lot more to talk about. We do have some draft-related questions, so we'll get to those here in just a little bit.
Hey, by the way, I've seen some Ricky Pearsall comments. I got to say this. The guy played at Arizona State and Florida. He hadn't seen a bad-looking girl in 5 years. So
well, he went from Jaden Daniels to Graham Mertz. He has seen bad quarterback.
Yes. Well, while we're on the subject of guys portaling, there's a lot going on in the portal as well. What's the latest there?
Yeah, so Dominic Williams will visit LSU in Missouri. We believe he'll make a decision mid to late next week. Could that be Wednesday? Maybe as early as Wednesday. Sometimes that falls to a Thursday or Friday. But I think Texas is ahead of Oklahoma after the 2 visits. Does that mean it'll end that way? It's the NIL, it's the portal. I do think Texas is ahead of Oklahoma. I'm not going to be surprised if it's not Texas LSU, barring something crazy happening with Missouri. So I think Texas is right there. He's got the 2 visits left, and we'll see what happens. And I'm not sure Texas is done, even at D-line. If they get Dominic Williams, they'll be done with A-gap players for sure. But not out of question they take another guy. We've talked about this before. They could take 3 guys this spring at defensive line in the portal. That's still not out of the question. Could it be 2? Yes. Could it be 3? Potentially. So we'll see there. There's a couple other guys we're monitoring behind the scenes. On defensive back, I think Texas is kind of Tacario Davis is the top guy. We'll see what happens there. And I think there's a couple other guys that they have their eye on as well. Not out of the question they take 2 in the portal at defensive back. At corner, for sure 1. Not out of the question it's 2 either, though. So we'll see what happens there. And Bobby, I don't know if we're expecting 1 or 2 guys to potentially go into the portal still from Texas. We're now at April 26th. The portal closes.
Jerry, this is a good one.
11:59 p.m.
Yeah, this is a good one. Ski break is today, the last day of the portal window. No, it's not. It's next Tuesday. Tuesday night at 11:59, to Jerry's point, the April 30th. And Jerry, I do think there's potentially more Longhorns weighing their decision right now. I don't know if he's actually entered the portal. He says he's going to, and Texas is not trying to stop that.
No,
as far as Terrence Brooks. So that, we'll see how that goes. Sark has said before, if you go in the portal, you're gone. So I think that was a mutual decision at this point. I really do. And so I would be surprised if it doesn't change, or if it changes. So we'll see. My thing on this is they need a corner, and they need a defensive tackle, period, as of right now. And so whether that's Tacario Davis at Arizona, and whether or not he actually wants to transfer, he hasn't. He's been in the portal for a while, Jerry.
Yeah.
And kept playing at Arizona. I'm one of those guys that it's time to see whether it's real or not with him. It's time to see whether or not it's real with him.
Then also high school recruiting. We talk about the portal so much that it seems like that's kind of been on the back burner here lately, but obviously not, as there's still a lot going on. What's the latest with that?
Yeah, so for the guys here, and that number's over 1,000 now. Thank you always for tuning in. That number will keep growing throughout the show. John Mills, the 4-star on Texas football 4-star, everybody else has him wrong, from San Francisco St. Ignatius, the offensive lineman. There you see him on Huddle. He joined our watch with us for the first round of the NFL draft at 7:30 last night. So if you didn't see that, 7:30, go watch that video from last night. It's a great interview, Bobby. I mean, I talked to John Mills before, so I had no questions about, my thoughts on him as a player from the tape. And then after having conversations with him, Bobby, that was your first time to really listen to him and get to know John Mills last night. And I could tell by your reactions, you were very impressed.
Yeah, he is. Look, a lot of people have clarity of what they want to do with their life at a younger age. And while not necessarily being too serious, if that makes sense, he's one of those guys.
Yeah.
That means that he knows what he needs to do to go get it done too. He also comes from a whale of a group of family of athletes. I mean,
Dad was a Navy SEAL.
Dad was a Navy SEAL. I was like, man, I bet he never left his clothes on his bedroom floor.
His dad, the crazy thing was his dad was a rower in college. He had 2 brothers that were rowers in college. And he has his youngest brother is a stud in water polo, is on the national team at a very young age. So just a family of athletes. He's the biggest and meanest, I think, or the biggest for sure. But you see there, somebody's asking about his arm length. I think it was 81 at Texas camp last year. But he's 6'5.5", 325. Not out of the question he plays right tackle at the next level, from what I'm hearing. I think Texas and Washington like him as a right tackle or guard. they think he's got a lot of colleges think he's got right tackle feet and has the length as well and that body quickness. So we'll see where he ends up playing. But he can play in space a little bit. You can see there. But such an impressive young man, Bobby. And I think Texas is in a good spot for him. They battle till the end. He's been to Texas 4 times. The official visit will be his 5th, June 14th through 16th.
He said he wanted to go to school in South, most likely. That's what he thought he wanted to do. That was one thing that struck me. And the other thing that struck me is his comments about Kyle Flood.
Yeah.
And his coach's comments about Kyle Flood to him, like outside of the conversation with Texas itself. Those struck me as genuine, yet it also may shed some light on why Kyle Flood gets a lot of the players that he targets, to be fair. I mean, because he was talking about, look, my high school coach came away impressed. He goes, that dude knows a lot, and you can learn from him. And so if you have and Marcus Hutchinson Marcus Hutchinson, another guy that knows his stuff up in Dallas, right? And he mentors some young offensive linemen. These guys know fake from real, some of these coaches.
Yeah.
And I think that helps Kyle Flood in that regard. So we'll see how that.
And I've said before, the John Mills recruitment, very similar to Jaden Chapman in that Flood got on him early. Washington offered very early. But he has 5 family members that were college athletes at Washington. So obviously Washington was going to have a head start. I think that was the first camp he ever went to. But Kyle Flood got in on him very early, kind of like Flood did with Jaden Chapman, which means Texas is outside of Washington, who he went to growing up. Texas has had the most visits of anybody from a kid out of San Francisco, St. Ignatius. So Flood did a good job identifying a guy early that he really liked before he was ranked by anybody. Same with Jaden Chapman, and has got him on campus multiple times. But yeah, somebody's mentioning, he canceled the USC visit where his brother plays water polo, by the way. He canceled that visit. I really think it'll come down to Texas and Washington. He's visiting Nebraska. He's visiting Florida. He's visiting California, I think. But I think it'll come down to Texas and Washington. I think Texas has a lead there.
All right. And we did have somebody ask, no other visits, correct? For Mills as of right now?
Yeah, no, that's what he's got. He canceled USC. So I think he's Nebraska official visit this weekend, maybe. Then he goes to Cal in May. He's got Washington May 31st, June 2nd, Florida June 7th through 9th, Texas his last visit June 14th through 16th. So that's where he's at right now. Somebody asked about offensive line. I'm gonna throw y'all one out here. I've said the numbers 5 and 25. Not out of question at 6. I'll put that out there.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Okay, guys.
Beef.
Well, I believe our special guest is here and ready. Jerry, I'm going to bring him in, but I'm going to let you do the introduction here.
Yeah, this is thanks very much to Coach Jacody Coleman, Skyline head coach, for joining us today. He coaches Elijah Barnes, obviously, Texas commitment, linebacker, Texas commitment. He's also got 2 former Longhorns on his staff, Peter Jenkins and Christian Scott. For those that don't know Jacody Coleman, he was a tremendous linebacker at Beaumont Westbrook. He was a starting linebacker at Iowa. I believe he picked Iowa over Florida coming out of college. We'll let him talk about that. But he coached at Atascocita for over a decade. So he's seen a lot of talented players. But the head coach of Elijah Barnes, Coach, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, man, thank y'all for having me this morning. I'm glad, able to talk a little bit with y'all about Elijah.
Hey, Coach, I got to ask you, you're a linebacker. And you got a linebacker, is that just happenstance, or did you see something in Elijah early that led you to kind of be a little bit of a tutor there and mentor him? And what do you see as his special traits?
Well, when I first got here in February 2022, he thought he was a running back. He was a freshman. I'm looking at the film. He running over everybody. I'm like, well, you bigger and faster than everybody. It's freshman football. I say, well, you're going to play linebacker. I seen, his length, his explosiveness. You know, he has some traits that bigger linebackers. You know, he kind of reminded me of them bigger type of prototype linebackers back in the day, like a Rolando McClain. You know, bigger guy like that. He even got some traits to me of Brian Orakpo, you know, if he kind of keep getting bigger, you know. But I just thought he could be a linebacker, and so it worked out for him.
Hey, talk about Elijah the kid, because Coach, I think what's impressed me about him is his maturity in the way he looks at football, recruiting, his future. He's so impressive to talk to, and you're around him every day. So I think that's part of what makes him a prospect that brought about every head coach in the country through your office in January.
Yeah, Jerry, he's just a very humble kid, you know. Like I tell coaches, like, you know, Elijah know he can play, you know he's good, but you know, if you talk to him, he doesn't come off that way. You know what I mean? He just comes off, you know, like a genuine kid that just like ball. And you know, as far as him as a kid every day, you know, he doesn't miss, you know, he work out every day. He don't think he's better than the team. And so, you know, he's kind of what you want out of when you have a player of his stature. You know, a guy that still like to work hard and still like to put in the time.
Hey, Coach, I wanted to ask you something. So you coached at Atascocita. You played in the Golden Triangle, which is some of the most physical football in the state of Texas. And anybody who's argues that, they didn't play, they haven't gone to those games. But DFW area, what makes it so strong right now, in your opinion? Having been in Houston at Atascocita for a decade, I mean, you're in what our guy Blake Monroe calls the District of Doom, right? I mean, it's
Right.
Duncanville, it's Cedar Hill, it's DeSoto. Now Lancaster's coming in, Mesquite Horn. Hey, welcome to the party, right? What makes DFW what it is right now?
I just think it's so much talent, you know, down that I-20 corridor and, you know, coming through. It's just a lot of talent right now in DFW. And I mean, somebody asked me about this yesterday, like, you know, Houston and Dallas. And I say, well, I mean, right now you can say Dallas playing the better football, you know, got the most state champions more so in DFW right now. I just think it's a good brand of ball. You know, I liked it even in Houston. I thought that was a good brand of ball we was playing. I was in the SEC in Houston too, you know, with North Shore, Summer Creek City King, Tennessee in there. So, you know, it's a good brand of ball, and I like playing it, you know, week in, week out, every game a big game. And if you're a high school football coach, you know, you want to kind of play these type of games.
Coach, NFL draft yesterday. Clearly, a lot of guys get their dreams come true yesterday. You got a young man there that Elijah Bobarnes probably has long-term dreams of making it to the NFL and may have the ability to do so. Right. Your advice to him and to others like him as they're going on this journey, I mean, you've seen it up close and personal, both as a player when you were at Iowa. You've seen guys go on and do it, and now you've seen it as a coach at Atascocita in particular. You've had several guys make it to the pros. What is it that separates those guys that actually make it, and what do they have to make sure they do on their journey from high school into the pros?
The thing about the guys that make it is, and it's really everybody who go play college ball, is they going to get to school and it's going to hit them. You know, because all the guys around them not gonna be good. You know, everybody's good. My best friend was in college was Adrian Claiborne. I was best man at his wedding, and I went to the draft with him. We was in New York for a week. He got picked like 23rd overall, and he had a 10-year career. You know, won Super Bowl. So, you know, I have those type of experiences where I could tell a kid, "Hey, man, a pro." You know, the reason why he lasted so long in the league because he was a professional. You know, he was on time. He just did the work. You know, even when he retired, the Jets called him. They wanted him to come just to show the younger guys how to be a pro. And so it's just going about your business day in, day out, staying focused on the main thing, knowing everything else will come as long as you produce on the field, you know, and be a good player.
Hey, Coach, I want to ask you about a little bit from your time at the end of Atascocita. So you went up against Kelvin Banks at Summer Creek, and you saw Texas signing Nate Kibble at a young age. Kind of, what were your thoughts on Kelvin Banks out of high school? Does anything – I mean, he's going to be an All-American and first-round pick next year, right?
Right.
Did you see all that with him going up against him? Because y'all prepared for him, you played against him. And then what do you remember about Nate Kibble as a young kid before you got up the Skyline?
It's funny because I seen Banks at practice a couple weeks ago at a scrimmage. And I reminded them about that, because they never beat us when I was there. But he really progressed in his senior year. He took off.
Yes.
His younger years wasn't as good, but his senior film, he took it to another level, and you could see it all come together for him. And when I seen that, I said he's only gonna get better, when he gets to college. And then Nate, I coached Nate. I coached his brother Jaden Allen too with the Memphis, and so I coached Jaden all his years, and I coached Nate for a couple, because I was on strength and conditioning when I was at Attire too. So Nate Kibble. Freshman coaches, I remember, early on, we in camp, and they was working out the freshmen, and he said, one of them told me, he said, man, we're not going to have him long. And so probably 2 days later, he was practicing with the varsity and starting against Allen, early in the season. And so we knew he was special. In the Attire, we kind of know now when I was there, when we had a guy on the O-line, because we had a few like Cosme, like Dewberry, all those guys. And Cosme had the nasty streak, and he was underdeveloped. And I think he didn't blow up early like those guys because something happened with his foot where he was out 1 year, his junior year. And so that's really kind of put Cosme off the radar a little bit. But all those guys had a little something different where you was like, yeah, you got a chance to be a pro.
Good stuff, Coach. All right, that's Coach Jacody Coleman. Thank you so much, Coach. We appreciate you, and best of luck to you.
No
and thanks for coming in. Enjoy your off season, man. I know. Are y'all going to do spring ball, or what's going on with y'all?
Yeah. We actually finished practice 5 yesterday, so we scrimmaged yesterday. We'll watch the film today. Get back on it next week on Monday.
All right, you have some fun today, Coach. Take care of yourself.
All right, y'all have a good one.
Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Coach. All right,
good stuff there, Jerry. Thanks for setting that up, Jerry.
Yeah. Hey, look, he's a great guy to have on because he's got great stories too. When I was at Dallas Skyline, we were talking about Beaumont Westbrook, Beaumont Central, all that in the day because he grew up there, right? So he watched Leland McElroy. He watched Chip Ambrose. We were talking about all these things from it almost when he was a little younger growing up until when he played at Beaumont Westbrook. But he's a wealth of knowledge, and he's great for Elijah because he played the linebacker position successfully at Iowa. I mean, I believe he was a team captain one year, and he was a highly recruited guy that picked Iowa over Florida. So he's been a heavily recruited player as well. He was a great guy for Elijah to lean on during the recruiting process and a great guy to kind of nurture and help Elijah mature as a linebacker. I think he's going to be a great asset for Elijah before he ever gets to Texas. Stand-up guy, really good young head coach in the state of Texas.
And he, Bobby, we were talking a little bit before. When he was at Atascocita, they went 111-22.
Yeah,
10 years there. That's insane.
That's what happens when you have 5 offensive linemen who are going to be pro football players too. By the way,
yeah, very true.
Yeah.
And by the way, and North Shore was at the peak at that time too.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That was a tough out for anybody. And obviously, he liked to say they never lost to Summer Creek. That's Texas Longhorn, Kenny Harrison, and they're friends. And I know he was digging at him on that one.
Well, hey, speaking of a tough outing, Jerry, it is time for you. There's your bat stick. Tell folks out there about Manscaped.
Look, I mean, I was thinking about today's lead into the read. I mean, I didn't have one other than, I don't know, Denver Broncos fans. Y'all might have got Manscaped last night by Sean Payton. I don't know. That seems a little bit of a reach to me. But call them what you want, knee knockers, gold nuggets, thigh slappers. But our friends at Manscaped refer to them as the boys. Not every man has children, but every man is responsible for their 2 boys below the waist. When your little guys have more hair than they need, trust Manscaped for all your grooming dreams. Boys need love too, so join the 10 million men plus worldwide who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com and use code ONTEXAS, all caps, for 20% off plus free shipping. You heard it here first. The boys are back in town. Look, every man knows how scary it can get when going for a close shave below the waist. That's why I trust Manscaped for all my sensitive areas. Introducing the Lawnmower family, including the 3.0, this 4.0 Pro in my hands, and the 5.0 Ultra. Yep, 3 ball trimmers. Isn't that awesome?
It is awesome. Oh man, there we go. Thank you, Bobby. I couldn't find the get it there to get it taken away. Very awesome. Hey, speaking of awesome, we have a great super chat here from Jack. Want to thank Jack as always. He says this is for Blake, a dang Longhorn hat.
Blake, do I have to audit your outfits for you, my man? I mean, you know, you've got a duck camp shirt you're wearing already.
He's clearly wearing the Cubs hat because they just swept the Astros in Chicago. What the Astros scored 2 runs?
Hold on. Yes.
Is that a Comanche?
Let me explain something first off. So yes, it is a Cubs hat, and I do like the way it looks. I got a bunch of different MLB hats from teams I don't really root for, but notice it has the C on it. I'm not a fan of the hats we have in Comanche for their baseball team, so I wear the C usually on game days for my son when he goes. So like later today, he'll be playing over in Millsap, and thus the hat. So that's why you see it usually on Mondays and Fridays. Is because so anyway,
Jack's right. We need to get you a Longhorn hat, bud. So
I'll work on that, Jack. Thank you so much.
Bobby, somebody's asking for your email address. I have the old National Recruiting Advisor email address. For your email address.
Just send it to Bobby at ontexasfootball.com if you have an email for me. Please feel free. Hey, there's a couple comments here I wanted to get to if we have time, Blake. You good with that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So people are asking, why did we not recruit Tyler Guyton? Because he was a late riser. That in Texas, historically, Jerry has not done much with late risers, particularly on the offensive line, because Texas goes ahead and gets those guys brought in early. Now, I do believe that that's changed under Steve Sarkisian. Because one of the good things about the way Sark does recruiting is that he doesn't have to make final decisions oftentimes until October. I mean, I know that sounds weird, but it's true. His idea of let's wait and see what happens, it brings them in players that to the party that probably would have been boxed out. And my guess is Tyler Guyton was boxed out of an offer from Texas if they would have even seen him as a senior and worked him out. So, but he was a basketball player turned football player. I think he had two years of football, Jerry. Is that right?
Yeah. He was he was a very late developer. And I don't know if he's asking out of the portal. Texas hasn't gone portal for offensive line at all. So if you were asking about portal, I just think Texas is going to develop from within at the high school level. And if you're asking portal, then Kelvin Banks and Christian Jones were already there. So that wasn't going to happen. But out of high school, Bobby's 100% correct. Late senior riser, and Gary Patterson saw the upside in him, had a spot at offensive tackle, and jumped on it.
This is the follow-up question to it, Jerry. That's why I asked about Tyler Guyton. Max Moeller, besides Nick Saban, who is the GOAT at evaluation? Gary Patterson in the state of Texas certainly was one. I thought Matt Rule and Mike Gundy. I thought Matt Rule did a nice job at Baylor as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, it's not popular to say, but Art Briles did an amazing job at Baylor
at certain positions.
Yeah, I mean, amazing job. I mean, look, I always go back to the story about Art Briles. If he hadn't been hired at Baylor, his 3 deep at quarterback at Houston would have been Kevin Kolb, Case Keenum, and Robert Griffin.
3 NFL quarterbacks.
At University of Houston, none of them offered by A&M, Texas, or Oklahoma as a quarterback. That is pretty strong that Robert Griffin was committed there with those other 2 guys in the program before.
And it wasn't just quarterbacks. It was mostly skill guys. I mean, Kendall Wright, Jerry, you and I talked. We were working together at the time and talked about him out of Pittsburgh, Texas, by the way.
I'll never forget that. I was at Gilmer High School, and Jeff Traylor and I was there to see all his guys. And I asked Traylor, I was like, all right, man, who's good in East Texas? Because Jeff has the eye. And I said, who's good? He said, get up to Pittsburgh. And I went up there and I was like, whoa, this guy is a little different animal now. So I'll always give credit to Jeff Traylor for sending me up the road on that one.
Oh, man.
You would have went to Texas potentially.
Yeah.
Kendall Wright.
We have a couple of people I think have asked this question, so I'm going to ask you guys. Too Broke to Pay Attention says, does having 2 LSU receivers in the first round before our one hurt our chances with the Corey and Moore's recruitment? And then I think someone also asked, does that hurt Texas in general with them having 2 off the board in the first?
I don't think it does. Look, I think the Corey and Moore's recruitment's going to come down to this. Where does he really want to be? And I think that's going to be Texas or LSU. And I think he really likes LSU, and I think he really likes Texas. Where does he want to be at the end of the day? I think is what this is going to come down to. I think a lot of this stuff is fun and great to talk about, and he'll reference stuff if you ask him questions in an interview. But I think at the end of the day, when he sits down with mom and family, it's going to be about where does he really want to be. That's just what sometimes it's a little simpler than we want to make it out to be. But I really believe with this recruitment, that's what it's going to come down to. I don't think Jaden Daniels and Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas would be the reason he goes to LSU. Those guys are gone. Offensive coordinator's gone. There's been a lot of change at LSU. I don't think necessarily Arch Manning, Xavier Worthy, A.D. Mitchell would be the reason he goes to Texas. I think it's going to be where does he want to be at the end of the day. Now, I think Texas has a great product to sell in terms of the consistency with the Steve Sarkisian's offense, with the quarterback room. Obviously, LSU has a tremendous 2025 class. Bryce Underwood's committed. The thing you talk about, the thing that's always referenced for me that I always reference nowadays in recruiting is the Corey and Moore is playing 3 years in college. He's way ahead of Bryce Underwood's schedule in college. So the quarterback committed in his class, I don't think matters that much. It's who's the quarterback that's already going to be there because he's on a different timeline than a quarterback coming in with him.
And then we have another super chat. This one from Any Given Saturday. Thank you, Any Given Saturday. He says, any news on Texas tight end Jordan Washington's injury? I'll take this one. He's all good to go. Nothing really to worry about there. It was just a deep bruise. All fine. So,
and they're talking about just for people, because I when I originally read that, it said Jordan Whittington to me, and I know it says Jordan Washington. So Jordan Whittington, by the way, was at the Xavier Worthy's party last night in Dripping Springs. Washington, you said it was a contusion. Is that right? Like,
just a bone bruise. And
And so I felt like Jerry and I were talking about this, and one of the things we're going to do this weekend, we hope get a chance to do, is go over all the freshmen that we saw on campus this spring and kind of give you all a feel for where we think they are. Jordan Washington, in my mind right now, is one of the top 5 freshmen on the UT roster. So if you're wanting upside from a certain player that maybe you weren't expecting it, Jordan Washington would be one of those for me.
And guys, don't forget, plenty of time to get your questions in, so please do so right here on Coffee and Football, presented by BKCW. But before we take some more questions, Bobby, I want you to tell folks out there about becoming an OTF OG real quick.
Absolutely, guys. If you haven't been joining us on TexasFootball.com, please do so. Become an OTF OG. All you have to do is use the code OTF OG, and you get $20 off an annual subscription. Jerry, myself, CJ Vogel, Blake, we're all on there. It's a good way to keep up with the news of the day. So a lot of times we can't break in with videos, etc. So the latest news on Dominic Williams, the defensive lineman out of TCU, for example, might break there before it goes anywhere else. It's also, we hope, and what we're building as a community is a positive way to talk about Longhorn football. No clicks, none of that stuff. Just come join us and have a good time. Try to talk intelligently, yet fun and enthusiastically about the Longhorns on TexasFootball.com. Again, use the code OTFOG and get $20 off your subscription, just $39.95. We wanted to make this very affordable for everybody so that as many people as wanted to could come be a part of it.
And then our next one here is from Nathan Raines. He says, what is the bigger need in the portal, in y'all's opinion? A defensive tackle or a corner?
I think it's defensive tackle still. I mean, I know you're losing a starter in Terrence Brooks, but I'm just telling you, you can make do at corner with some of the pieces you have right now. I don't think you can make do against the run in that. There's a reason Texas is trying to sign 3 defensive linemen out of the portal right now, guys. I hope everybody understands that. I mean, that's where they think they are on run defense. I mean, it's not just a media guy trying to tell you guys they were hurting after losing Murphy and Sweat. Texas probably didn't think they were going to lose Murphy this year. You got to remember that too. He went out a year early, and then he went and had a dominating season. And yes, he should have left early. He went 16 overall or 15 overall, whatever it was for the Seahawks. They were caught a little bit by surprise by that. But the fact that they're going after so many should tell you what they are worried about heading into the SEC based on who they have on campus currently. So,
and I would say this too. If they get the deep interior D-line position shored up with the experience and they want and need, then Texas staff knows the edge play is really going to be a factor. Even more so if you have that experience and you get one of those guys that's going to command a double team, a Dominic Williams, that's a big recruitment for Texas. We'll see what happens with it. Those edge guys become that much more dangerous and better. I think I think Texas sees a real opportunity to put this thing together in the front 7 this year. So we'll see what happens with it.
Got somebody checking in from Madrid, Spain this morning. That's pretty cool there. I know you like to see those worldwide ones, Jerry. And this next question from Roger G. Do y'all think Quinn would have been one of the 6 quarterbacks drafted in the top 12 last night if he came out this year?
I think he would have been. I can't look. I don't understand Bo Nix in the first round. I just don't understand it. He doesn't have, here's my point. Sean Payton, making a comparison to him to Drew Brees. Drew Brees had unbelievable accuracy. In every way possible, not a long windup. I don't see the comparison there. So I don't know if Quinn would have been one of the first 6. I think that he would have been the next one. I think we may have seen 7 quarterbacks go in the first round based on the way they were drafting quarterbacks last night. I don't know. Jerry, do you have a thought on that?
I don't think he would have been one of the first 6. I agree with you. I think he would have been the 7th guy. Based off of last year, that's where you have to base it off of.
And then Archmania says, guys, I'm a Santana Wilson fan. Before he even steps on campus, watch and see. I know y'all talked about him a little bit yesterday. Y'all are fans too.
I'm a big fan. I'm not comparing him to Manny Muhammad because there's 2 things. When you get into the college level, do you accept the physicality needed at the corner position? Manny Muhammad did that immediately his first spring. Santana Wilson's going to have to prove that. And I'm talking physicality against the run, right? Manny Muhammad, physical player for his size. And then the other part of that is, are you going to go in and study the guy? I mean, Manny Muhammad's probably first guy in the film room, last guy out. But if Santana does that, I think he's going to be tremendous. A corner for Texas. Here's where they're similar. They're very much technicians who play in phase. I think, and look, they've also been playing corner for a long time, Bobby. That's the thing, is that these aren't guys that you're bringing in that were a jack of all trades, played receiver, played quarterback, played wherever. These guys have been corner focused for a few years. So there's some similarities there. There's some similarities in frame. There's some similarities in this. Neither one of those guys, Manny Muhammad's not going to go to the combine in 2 years and run 4.35 or 4.4. He doesn't have to. He's a tremendous corner. I mean, Terrion Arnold ran 4.47 and 4.5 flat and went late first round or in round 20, right? And I think Manny Muhammad is a better pure corner than Terrion Arnold. He might not be quite as athletic or long as Terrion Arnold, but I think he's a better pure corner. Nick Saban even talked about last night on ESPN that Kool-Aid McKinstry is a more instinctive, better natural corner than Terrion Arnold right now. Terrion Arnold has that upside, but Santana Wilson and Manny Muhammad, they have some similar traits. We'll see if it works out that way at the college level like it has for Manny with Santana Wilson.
I want to say this. The number one factor that Manny Muhammad has beyond all of the requisite size and length, and it's up here. Santana Wilson, if he has that, Texas got a great player. And that will be the difference between Santana Wilson being a good cornerback or a solid cornerback and Santana Wilson being potentially a great cornerback. Because he got everything else. He's got a little Manny Muhammad has a little something extra up top and in here.
Yeah.
That's the difference between some of these guys now.
It goes back. I'm
going to say this. You can't tell me that there are a lot of players. By the way, there are a lot of players that practice hard and play hard and all that stuff. There are not a lot of players that are utterly devoted and have the gamesmanship.
Yeah,
that's the thing that Manny Muhammad has as a corner. He's got a little of that gamesmanship to him, which takes it to another level.
And by the way, what Jacody Coleman said, the head coach from Dallas Skyline earlier, that is Manny Muhammad's that guy. That mature, that professional, that's what he's talking about. By the way, somebody, Cody Pack, is Texas after Norchad O'Meara, the big power forward center out of Miami in basketball, went in the portal. He checked no contact. He already knows where he's going. I've not heard anything with that being Texas. I think a lot of people think that's St. John's or Kentucky.
All right, y'all. Before we move on, I need to tell folks out there about Goodr, and sunglasses don't get any better than Goodr. And for $25 a pair, you can't beat it. They're 100% polarized. They don't slip. They don't bounce. They're always releasing new styles. They even have a pair for Longhorn fans. It's Goodr. It's good for you. It's good for your wallet. I know my son's excited. His pair is coming in today. He already had me track them this morning before he went to school. So you know I stand behind them. You've heard Jerry talk about them. Bobby loves them as well. And if you don't believe us, guys, just go online. See their more than 50,000 five-star reviews. They stand behind their product with a 30-day free return window and a 1-year warranty. Goodr will have you looking stylish, and it's easy on the wallet. They're so affordable, you don't have to worry about breaking them or losing them like you do with other expensive sunglasses. So if you want to support the show and try a pair, Goodr is giving On Texas Football listeners free shipping. You can go to goodr.com/OnTexas, use promo code OnTexas, and you'll be able to take advantage of that free shipping offer that they're giving you guys. Goodr offers a 30-day money-back guarantee and 100% satisfaction. Again, that's goodr.com/OnTexas. Using promo code OnTexas, and that's going to get you free shipping with the good folks at Goodr. I saw you putting them on, and I had to look away.
You're testing Blake's ability to concentrate.
I could actually just do the whole show like this.
You should. Guys got drafted and did interviews last night like that. Bobby, go for it.
I am a big fan of Goodr, actually, so I don't mind doing the extra.
Look, I can tell you this. I'm going to go to the old Sunshine State and hit schools in a couple of weeks, stop at Skyline on the way, and the old Goodrs are going with me.
So, hey, Jerry, tell people where you are going on that trip, because I know Saraland, Mobile is right in the middle there for KJ Lacey. Where else are you planning on hitting in that trip?
Yeah, I'm going to go. I'm going to go down, hit schools in the Sunshine State. Going to go see Jamie French at Mandarin. Going to go to Orlando area, going to go down to maybe the IMG, Port Charlotte to see Myron Charles, may go over to American Heritage to see Dia Bell, the 2026 quarterback. But I got 6 or 7 stops planned. So it's going to be a fun trip in the Sunshine State. And look, I do think Texas is going to recruit more and more in the state of Florida moving forward. Guys.
They're having success. They should. You know, by the way, Jacksonville Mandarin it's actually Jacksonville Beach.
Yeah.
So you're taking I-10 from Houston
all the way.
East as that sucker goes.
Yeah, it's like Forrest Gump. When it ends, I'm at the school. So
Yeah,
when it ends, I'm done. Hey, look, I'll say this too. It's that I can't wait more than interviewing Jamie French, all that. I mean, whatever on that. We know the recruitment's going into June. He's going to make his visits. I want to see him work out in person. I want to see the spring practice because, dude, they're a talented team now. They have a safety over there that's one of the very tops in the country. They're going to have some young guys. Hilton Stubbs is a safety. He's a bad dude, in my opinion. I think they have 2 future NFL guys at least. They may have a couple of young kids too. But I'm really excited about going to watch him in practice because I have a feeling I know what I'm going to say after I get out of that practice, but I'm going to wait for the practice.
We got some more super chats, fellas, that we need to read. First, I want to read this one from Jack. I apologize, Blake, using that C for Comanches and not such. Just leave it in the car. Noted, Jack. Noted. I appreciate the super chat. Reckless Trey says, positive vibes only on this side. Hook 'em. Thank you, Reckless Trey. We appreciate it. And then Rhett says, I'm concerned with getting too hung up on recruiting long corners. Mac did the same thing and almost didn't offer Diggs. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I think it's bad when people have – I'll say this. Mac almost didn't they were hung up on long corners. They absolutely were. They wanted the Curtis Browns, the Shockey Browns, those types of guys that had long levers. And here's where I disagree completely with the idea that a player has to be a certain height and weight at all times. Okay? Don't bring me a defensive lineman that's 6'1". Okay, some head coaches they will tell people that. Well, you say that to now, and you missed out on Byron Murphy. You say that you don't want a 5'11" or 6 foot corner, or you have to have a 6 foot plus corner. You miss out on Quandre Diggs.
Yeah.
Don't give me absolutes.
Right.
If you think a kid is a great player, bring him to me. If you think he's just an okay player in 5'10", don't bring him to me. That has to be the theory, especially in high school to college. College to the NFL is a different story because that you're going up against grown men every single time. But if you're a great player, bring them to me. I don't care what size you are. Darren Sproles, for example. I mean, you know how many people passed over Darren Sproles for him to get to Kansas State? I mean, Nebraska. You know, how would Nebraska have looked with Darren Sproles in their backfield coming out of Kansas City?
I say this all the time. If Emmitt Smith had come out of high school today in the day and age of camps, no matter what his stats were at Escambia High, if he showed up at a combine and he was 5'8" and 7/8", 182 pounds and ran 4.7, would he have ended up at Florida? As great a player as he was, this is kind of the issue sometimes. I think it's paralysis by analysis, Bobby.
There was a famous recruiting expert at the time, guy named Max Imfinger, that said he wouldn't take Emmitt Smith, the most overrated recruit in the country. And that stuck with Max for a long time because when you make large grand statements about that, and then it turns out that person's wearing a gold jacket, 15 years later, you pretty much got that dead wrong. And that came out. I feel like, to your point, my issue is, yes, I believe in 6 foot plus corners with long levers. I believe them until the cows come home. Give me a great player over them every day. Give me Darrell Green or whoever. Give me the guy that's a great player, and then I'll tell you whether or not he has to have 6 foot. He has to have a long lever. That's my opinion.
My thing is this: on the corners, there aren't many 6'3" guys with long arms that are elite corners, that elite turn and run ability. But if you find one, they're as important as anything. Now, that's the thing. If you find one, And look, Takario Davis is the big name right now for Texas fans at corner. That in the portal at Arizona, we'll see what happens with that. He wasn't a highly ranked guy coming out of high school. He wasn't a camp kid. Didn't really go. He grew since high school from 6'2" to 6'3.5", like he is now. But if you find one of those guys, that they're difference makers. But the hard thing is actually finding one that's that level. Somebody asked, did Mac pass on Adrian Peterson? No, Mac did not pass on Adrian Peterson. Cedric Benson was already at Texas for one. And then I think Adrian Peterson was at a Texas game that didn't really go well.
Oh, they lost 66 to something, and Adrian Peterson basically said, I'm going to OU. Yeah. After that. The other thing is Mac Brown did not make – Texas didn't even finish second for Adrian Peterson, by the way.
Right. Yeah, and USC was third.
Yeah, and the Mac Brown did not go visit Adrian Peterson's dad, who was in jail at the time. For
Texarkana,
whatever offense that was.
And Bob Stoops did.
All right, hey, Blake, it's time for baseball. It's Friday. The Longhorns have a series this weekend, I believe.
Yes, sir.
What's going on? And we can get caught up with the Longhorn baseball team. David Pierce's team took 2 of 3 last week. So what's going on?
Yeah, so, and he also got ejected. We'll talk about that here in just a second, guys. But big series this weekend in Norman. Obviously, Texas heading to Oklahoma. Texas, number 3, tied for number 3 in the conference standings. Oklahoma is number 1. They have a 14-4 record overall. So a huge weekend, not only for that, but for other reasons as well. Texas needs to improve their RPI. I believe they're currently sitting at number 66. Oklahoma's at number 18. So a series win here would be huge for the RPI for postseason chances, berths, what have you. But Oklahoma is also playing or beginning to start playing for a chance to host this postseason. So there's a lot on the line for both teams this weekend. It's going to be what should be a fun one if the weather holds off. I know on Saturday there's a good chance of thunderstorms all throughout the day, so we'll have to see what happens there. But as far as pitching goes, from what I've been told, same starting weekend rotation that we saw last weekend against TCU. That's Grubbs on Friday, Whitehead on Saturday, and then LBJ now in that Sunday slot. And by the way, got to give a quick shout out to Ace Whitehead. I was looking earlier. Perfect 4-0 record. Been a huge emergence for this team. Last week, he pitched 6 innings against TCU, only allowed 3 hits, only walked 1 batter, and allowed no runs on that one. So the emergence of Ace, like I said, has just been absolutely phenomenal for this team that has needed some phenomenal things to happen to him. As far as Pierce goes, he's already served 1 of his 2-game suspensions. He will travel with the team. He's been with them all week. He just cannot be on the field with them during those games. He'll even probably ride the team bus up to the stadium is what I've been told. He just cannot actually be out there.
Blake, what was the situation surrounding his ejection?
Arguing a call that ended up working itself out. I mean, it was one of those things that really he shouldn't have argued too much. I mean, like I said, it worked itself out, but he went overboard. I'm trying to think how to put this nicely. He went a little overboard on it and just kept on. And finally, the umpires had enough and just got him out of there. But yeah, man, I mean, so they played during the week. They won that game. So that was game 1 of those 2 games. Game 2 tonight will finish up his suspension. So then he'll rejoin the team completely on the field tomorrow. And then one other thing I want to say, guys, I got to give a shout out to former Longhorn Dennis Cook. He actually World Series champion Dennis Cook, I should say. He threw out the first pitch this past weekend against TCU, but he's now coaching Poland's national team. They're trying to qualify for the 2026 World Baseball Classic. And so he's going to be coaching them, and he's going to be heading over to Coffee and Football here in about 2 weeks. He's going to talk with us about that experience, give his thoughts on this year's team, all that good stuff. So just a big congratulations to him. I know it's something that he's super excited about after talking to him about it this past
week. Jerry, he's from down there where we're from. I went to Dobie. Jerry went to Clear Lake in the Houston area. Dennis Cook is from Dickinson, Jerry.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know that. The thought process I had there, Blake, on this baseball discussion. Has the move to pushing LBJ into the Sunday starters role, has that given Texas kind of the edge in the second and third starters with Whitehead and LBJ now pitching on Saturday and Sunday? Is that kind of the idea behind?
I think so.
What Pierce is doing?
Yeah, and I think it's too early to tell on LBJ. I mean, because I've talked about his struggles this year. I've talked about him on TexasFootball.com. I've talked about him on here. So I think last Sunday was good for him. It was something he needed because before that, guys, he didn't have a win since when he pitched against Texas Tech in early March. As a weekend starter. So that was something he needed last weekend. So we'll see how that works out going forward. I was kind of surprised they made him the Sunday starter, but, they don't have a whole lot to work with as far as pitching goes. But, yeah, Ace Whitehead has just been huge. And I wouldn't even mind seeing him as the Friday night starter. Right now, he has the best ERA out of the three starting pitchers, 3.32. So, yeah, I don't know. I think it's too early to tell what the returns are on moving LBJ to Sunday. But speaking of returns, let me tell you who has good returns, and that's Chinook Seedery. I love their seeds, guys. It's baseball season. If you're like me, you got to have those sunflower seeds. I even got a bag right here. Honestly, I was eating them before the show. So don't fret, guys. Chinook Seedery has you covered. They have crafted the best tasting sunflower seed on the planet, and their unique flavors are made from real foods and real spices. That means real Parmesan cheese, authentic hatch chilies, and freshly harvested dill. Right now, I'm absolutely hooked on their lemon pepper flavor. They actually partnered up with Bobby Witt Jr. to make that one, and it is phenomenal. And with 8 unique flavors to choose from, you're definitely going to find one that you love. And whether you're actually in the game or just watching it, make sure to grab a bag of Chinook. Find them in your favorite store. Go online, ChinookSeedery.com. You can order them that way. And don't forget, seeds the day with Chinook.
Hey, let's reset a little bit, guys. The Longhorns had 2 players picked in the first round of the NFL draft yesterday. Byron Murphy going to the Seattle Seahawks. I think he was the second or third defensive player chosen in the entire draft. The first 14 picks were all offensive players. Just insane for the NFL draft. Xavier Worthy, the Kansas City Chiefs, moved up in the draft in a prediction that Rod Babers made on the Wednesday night live stream. He said somebody's going to move up because they see Xavier Worthy and his speed as an outlier. That's exactly what happened. Kansas City moves up 4 picks from 32nd to 28 to take Xavier Worthy. He is now a Kansas City Chief. And I tell you what, the Chiefs, as if they needed someone else to threaten defenses. Not only do they have Travis Kelce, they also now have Xavier Worthy to go with the superhuman at quarterback, Pat Mahomes. So, look, happy day for the Longhorns. Now we await today where I think 2 or 3 Longhorns could go. A.D. Mitchell should be one of the first ones off the board. Buffalo moved back twice in the draft. They now hold the 33rd pick overall. Then you have guys like Jonathan Brooks, Christian Jones, maybe Jatavian Sanders sneaks in here, Tavondre Sweat. We'll see what happens tonight. That gets started, I believe, at 6 o'clock Central this evening.
I think Sweat's the most interesting left because he's off the board for some teams, apparently. So that'll be interesting to see if he slides all the way to the 4th round.
Yep. Jerry, give folks an update on the situation at portal recruiting so we can get through that after we reset here.
Yeah, so Dominic Williams, TCU D-line transfer, is going to visit LSU and Missouri, then decide mid to late next week. I think Texas is in front of Oklahoma right now. Does that mean Texas will win the recruitment? It does not. I could see it coming down to Texas and LSU, barring some miracle from Missouri. We'll see what happens there. And I think Texas had a great visit with Dominic Williams. I don't think if I hear that Texas had a bad visit for a player, it would be very much a surprise at this point. I think Steve Sarkisian, these guys, Texas is winning one. They do a great job presenting the university and football program. I've heard Kenny Baker's presentation went very well. with Dominic Williams and his people close to him, his circle. So I think we'll see what happens on that. It's still going to have to play out. There's other visits. So you can't get ahead of yourselves, especially in this day and age. But I think there's some confidence in Texas. We'll see what happens, though. And I think Texas, there's a couple other D linemen that they have their eye on. I think if Dominic Williams were to fall Texas way, they're done with A-gap players. Does that mean they're done totally? Maybe, maybe not. Then at corner, obviously Tacario Davis is a top guy. He's in the portal at Arizona. He's been in the portal a while. We'll see what happens there. He's a 6'3" corner that will probably be a mid NFL draft pick. Started, I think, 11 games last year at Arizona as a true sophomore. He's out of Long Beach Milliken, so a SoCal kid. Johnny Nansen coached him, helped recruit him. Steve Sarkisian, SoCal. I mean, there's a lot of ties there for Texas. We'll see what happens with Tacario Davis. Not out of the question Texas takes 2 DBs out of the portal, but it would have to be the 2 correct guys for Texas. They're not going to go reach on anybody. So we'll see what happens there in portal. High school recruiting. I mentioned this earlier. If you guys didn't watch the watch with us for the first round of the NFL draft around 7:30, so 30 minutes into the show, John Mills joined us for an interview. So if you didn't see that, you want to go back and watch that interview with John Mills. It's one of the best prospect player interviews we've had on Texas football.
Right, guys. So we got time for a few more questions here before we call it a day. But first, we need to do the super chat from Edmund Lee. He says, on Texas football, I enjoyed Victory Lap and meeting up with Bobby and Rob. Thanks for a good show, Blake and Jerry. Thank goodness it's Friday. Hook 'em and ready to start the SEC season. On Texas football, let's make it happen again.
I'm ready, man. It was fun getting out there. It was a little overcast on that game day, guys, but the weather held off. We had a good spring scrimmage. Jerry, we got to get – I was listening to Greg McElroy. We both know Greg. And he was talking about Arch Manning's spring game performance. I think we need to try to get Greg on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he also has
talked about Connor Weigman, A&M, some other SECs. I agree with you, Bobby.
Yeah, we need to try to get Greg on the show. I talked to him. I guess this was back last time I talked to him was back in New Orleans around the Sugar Bowl. I saw him down there. Talked to him for a little bit. He's a good guy. He had some really good things to say about Arch and where he's going most recently on one of his programs.
Okay, guys, this next question here is actually one about on Texas football. Sandman23 says, is there going to be a live stream for the draft tonight?
No, I don't think so. Unless we come in and talk a little bit about, as Ed and I mentioned, we've got Rod and myself and Jerry, and I think CJ is going to join us at 1 o'clock this afternoon for our normal live stream. We're going to talk a little about it then. I don't know that we'll be doing a live stream tonight. I don't know about that.
And then we got some more draft questions. Michael wants to know, where do you guys think Jonathan Brooks goes as of now? I'll start by saying the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Well, this is the thing about Jonathan Brooks. So, what did Jerry Jones say? He was the most impressive interview he's had in 30 years. I mean, how well does that speak of a young guy?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just awesome. That just says so much. I mean, and I'm not a big Jerry Jones fan, but I can tell you, Jerry Jones has seen a lot in his days. And for anyone to say that of that experience says a lot about Jonathan Brooks. So I'm happy about that. The other piece that I would add about that, the Cowboys were thought to going to be picking him potentially with that second round pick. Well, they added another pick. Don't forget when they moved back in the round. And I think they picked up either a late second or third in that one. So now where do they pick? If they were to go running back, where would they pick Jonathan Brooks? And the tie, if people are unaware of this, if you're from Houston, the tie in there is that the Dallas team doctor or one of the Dallas team doctors actually did the surgery on Jonathan Brooks after the ACL. And so there's a tie in there about how well they feel his ACL is healing, which is also great news for Jonathan.
Okay, guys, we'll do just one or two more questions. First, let's start with a recruiting question for Jerry from Roger. He says, the Texans take both Marcus Harris and Kelan Johnson, or do they save some spots for Moore, French, and Lockett?
Yeah, I'd be surprised if both those guys are in the class. I think the interesting thing is, does Texas take 3 or 4 high school receivers? I think there's a possibility it's 4. So that would add a number to the class. DeCorian Moore has a spot until December. That Texas won't need that. They'll know. Texas and LSU will know a final answer from DeCorian Moore, I think, in July. He's going to decide before his senior season begins. That'll be a final decision. Jamie French, same thing. These kids are going to decide. Kalik Lockett, same thing. Kelan Johnson. I think Texas, USC are the top 2 there for Kelan Johnson. But if they take 4 receivers, it gets interesting. And it's gone back and forth between 3 and 4. I think there could be a little lean to 4 receivers in the class right now.
Hey, let me ask you about Kelan Johnson. Does he have more wiggle than Ryan Niblett?
Yes. Kelan Johnson, he has a lot of stop-start ability. He almost has a jump cut ability to him. He's a little better after the catch, I would say, in that lateral agility, multiple moves in tight spaces. Yeah, I would say so. And I want to, look, could you say when I say this, it's a compliment. Is he a poor man Xavier Worthy? Maybe. I think he's got a little of that in him, that toughness, the moves with the football, the ability to make a couple people miss, similar frames, like slide a build, but wiry, strong, but plays physical. So I think there's something there, but I do think he's got a little more wiggle than Ryan Niblett.
Okay, guys, before we take this final question, Bobby, can you tell folks out there about the good folks at BKCW?
Sure can, Blake. Operating out of their headquarters in Austin, Texas, and owned by a UT grad, BKCW is a business insurance company that uses a 5-step process to identify your business's weak spots, design a plan, execute it, and monitor your situation throughout the entire year so that you can effectively manage your insurance costs and manage your company's risks. So if you're a business owner, have several employees, and have an employee benefits plan, you want to reach out to the guys at bkcw.com. They have already helped some of the most well-known construction companies, restaurant groups, breweries, even on Texas football, escape the insurance trap. And it all starts with a free risk assessment. Go to bkcw.com or send them an email, info@bkcw.com, to get started with a free risk assessment or a claims audit and escape the insurance trap. That's bkcw.com. We appreciate their sponsorship each and every Friday of Coffee and Football.
Blake, final question. Good one to close it out. Ryan Nelson, 923. And I want everybody's thoughts in the chat as well on this after the spring game.
So he says, give us your post-spring record predictions. I'm 10-2 right now with losses to Michigan and Georgia.
I'm 10-2 as well. Where those two are going to come from, I don't know. And look, I've said this. I think Texas is going to be a better team next year than they were this last year. I do think they play a tougher schedule, so you could be 10-2 versus 11-1 and be a better team than me. So I am going to start at 10-2 because I think it is a tough schedule. It's not the hardest schedule in the SEC. Make no mistake, unless Florida's better than people think. But I think Florida's going to be beat up by the time they get to Austin, maybe mentally and physically. But I'm starting at 10-2. Who those two are, I don't know. I still think Texas – I know Michigan's physical, and I know Michigan's going to try to attack Texas, condense the game, make it very physical, line of scrimmage game. I get what Michigan's going to do. I think Texas will win at Michigan. That second loss – is it at A&M, the first game you play them? It's hard to say. That's such a health game at the end of the season and momentum game. But that place is going to be wild. But I do think 10-2 is my starting point, Bobby.
It is a starting point. It kind of depends to me on what they do here, closing out the portal. I do think that the nose tackle position and even corner now are quasi priorities and could affect a win or loss number. If taken together. I was struck by something yesterday as I thought about Michigan, Jerry. So Michigan had 1 first-round draft pick yesterday, the quarterback. Now, that's a big position.
Yeah.
We all know that. But – and they'll have, Some people think they might have 15 guys drafted in this draft.
Also, they're going to have 5 or 6 offensive linemen drafted.
Yeah, so my point is, over the next 2 days, it's really going to be a Michigan love fest.
Yes.
In many respects. Even though Texas is going to be, as you know, one of those teams that has a lot as well. What I realize and what you really think about with Michigan is they've got some elite players coming back. Will Johnson at corner, Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham at defensive tackle could all be top 15 picks next year. So their defense, if they can score 14 to 21 points against you in Ann Arbor and they just trip themselves up or somebody throws a pick 6, that could be why that game is really tricky. Plus, it's going to be, it's going to be the big noon kick already, which is 12 o'clock Eastern, but 11 o'clock Central. And you're in somebody else's house that has 105,000 people. So I'm just their defense is what worries me more than their offense. I think their offense might trip itself to 14 to 21 points. And then therefore can Texas score 28. I still say 10 wins. I'm at that level. I think it could be higher. I think it could be a game or two lower. I'm not saying that the floor is 10 wins. I'll put it that way.
Okay, guys. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football presented by BKCW. I want to thank them along with Chinook, Goodr, and Manscaped all for sponsoring today's show. Jerry, before we get out of here, I got to show you this. It appears Xavier Worthy has definitely hit the big time. Do you see why?
Oh, gosh.
Look toward the bottom.
The shoes?
Look, who's it liked by?
Taylor Swift.
Wow. I did not see that. I was looking for like Goodr sunglasses.
I was too. Taylor Swift likes the Xavier Worthy post. That's awesome.
Oh, man.
That's awesome. That's a good one.
I had to bring it up.
That went over my head, but I'm also not a Swiftie, so I'll say that.
Oh, man.
If that had been liked by Yacht Rock, I'd have been all in.
Well, like I said, that's going to do it for today's show. We want to thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for the great questions, the super chats. Be sure, if you haven't already, go over to ontexasfootball.com. Use promo code OTFOG to take advantage of that special offer and become an OTFOG. Sign up and continue this conversation further with us. Also, please hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't, and then ring the bell so you're notified anytime and every time that we go live or post a video. And that way you're all caught up. You never miss a moment of breaking news when it comes to the Longhorns. So for Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you on Monday morning.
Hey, don't forget to say thank you